There was a zombie outbreak out west in the late 1800s. I'm here to tell you all about it. Part 2. Alright, so the guys make it home that afternoon. They enter the town down the main street and there's a couple people here and there. Some shop owners standing out front in their place enjoying the weather, etc. The general store owner comes out, running up to them, and he's like, "Where the hell's Billy?" "He's dead," Sheriff returns quickly. "We gotta get to Doc right now." By now, more people are popping out of wherever they were hiding. They get up to the Doc's place with a train of people and tail, all wondering what the hell is going on, not getting answers. Was it Indians? Was it an animal? Did he shoot himself on accident? Doc hears the commotion and comes outside as they approach. He's looking at the house, knowing full well there's a dead body in the sleeping bag, then sees Sheriff's bandaged up, bloody red hand. Inside. Doc starts on one of them as they put the sleeping bag on the exam table. "I told you it was a bad idea to go up there. What happened?" He starts undoing the sleeping bag. Sheriff stops him. "Hold on. Before you look, you need to hear what happened first." So they tell him the whole thing. Of course, he doesn't believe them. "Now, I told you there could be toxins up there. Some kind of space dust you inhaled that made you hallucinate. I sure hope I don't have to call the state marshals to start a murder investigation." "Well, don't take our word for it, goddammit," Smokey says. "Here you go." He whips open the sleeping bag Doc had untied. Doc jolted and jumped back. After a few seconds of staring, he starts getting closer. "He looks like Swiss cheese, doesn't he?" English says dryly. "He bit the hell out of my hand. Damn near might have torn out my jugular if I hadn't got it up in time. I made a judgment call forwarded to me as a lawman. He tried biting everyone else, so I put him down. Then he got back up." "People don't just get back up after being shot," Doc says, not taking his eyes off Billy's corpse. "Well, he did," Jack says. "And no, we didn't have any alcohol up there. Nobody even brought any." "Headshot stopped him for good," Sheriff says, pointing to a huge hole in Billy's head. Doc kind of snaps out of his trance. "Okay, so a turtle bit him, and by night he was... this?" "Yes," Sheriff says. "There was something in the water. Turtle was covered in it." "I'm gonna need that turtle to find out if I was carrying some kind of infection," Doc says. Doc and Sheriff start playing the who has more authority card. "Nobody is going up there," Sheriff says. "Too dangerous. Whatever that turtle have, it's safe to say Billy did too." Doc is staring at Billy again. It's like he's been dead for weeks. This happened overnight. "Sheriff is bit too, Doc," Smokey says. He kind of says it with dread in his voice. Doc checks his hand out. "That's quite a bite. Nice work cauterizing it. I've got some antibiotics to start you on. Not sure if they'll help, though." The rest of the guys murmur quietly. Thought it looked worse yesterday," Smokey ponders. "Why doesn't he look sick?" Jack asks. Doc goes into a long spiel. "There could be several reasons. I said the antibiotic may not help because it sounds like whatever was transferred to Billy is probably viral. A couple things can happen when it comes to any disease, bacteria or viral. 99% of people who get infected get sick and show signs, and be contagious and fall prey to whatever the disease causes, up to death depending on what it is. The other 1% could be three different things. First, you could straight up be immune to the disease. For whatever reason, it's not able to overcome your immune system. You won't show signs, you won't be sick, and you won't be contagious." "I hope he's immune," Engley interrupts. Doc doesn't miss a beat. "The second thing is you could be a carrier. That means you're infected, but you won't feel sick and you won't show symptoms. You are still contagious, however." "How do we know if he's immune or carrying?" Smokey asks. "I'll have to do some blood tests. I'll probably have to run cultures, which takes time." "What's the third thing that can happen?" Sheriff asks. "Well, we don't have to worry about that since you've already been showing. But the last thing that can happen is the pathogen completely mutates your DNA. When it enters your body, within hours your body could start changing physically. Muscle tissue overgrowth, skeletal growth, or shrinkage. Severe decrease or increase in mental function. The list of physical changes could be endless. So until we know, I need to act like I'm a carrier," Sheriff says. "That's correct," Doc returns. "Don't use the public outhouse. Only prepare your own food. Keep that hand wrapped tight. Sheriff says he's just going to go home and stay there and run his office off his front porch. So they all leave the doc's place as he gets ready to do the autopsy on Billy. Doc only has one nurse with him, but she was more than an assistant than an actual nurse. They glove up and get their table ready. It's at this point that the shit really starts, and honestly, it was a complete freak accident. At this point, Doc interrupts the nurse to remove Billy's teeth for dental records, while he examines what's left of Billy's brain. Doc has a suspicion that whatever made Billy sick specifically affected his brain, given he apparently went insane and tried to attack everybody. Doc was also interested in the brain because that was eventually stopped Billy for good when he was shot there. Okay, Doc starts, so his brain appears to be covered in a foreign substance of some kind. Most of the blood is coagulated and dried, but this appears to still be moist. I can verify it as a silvery in hue. He's telling the nurse so she will be able to help him write his notes. Now this next part is what screws everybody up. Doc is poking around the brain, and he must have hit a nerve of some kind. Whatever he hits causes Billy's jaw to close hard and quick. Remember what the nurse is doing? She's trying to pry his teeth out. Despite being dead, Billy manages to bite the nurse's finger hard. She lets out a cry and Doc gets worried. "It didn't break the skin, did it?" he asks hurriedly. They both make a huge mistake here. The nurse lies and says it didn't break the skin. It did. Doc also doesn't ask to look at it. He can't seem to pry himself away from Billy's carcass. The nurse says she's just going to wash her hand real quick to be safe, and Doc lets her. She comes back with a band-aid on her finger, but since the gloves they were wearing were opaque, Doc doesn't notice. Doc moves on to the torso and cuts Billy open. There's silvery shit everywhere. It was definitely in his bloodstream. I think I might be able to isolate a sample. They wrap up what they're doing after a couple hours and the nurse goes home while the doc writes his notes. It's dusk by now, so everyone will start hitting the sack before long. Doc is up all night though. More on that later. That was also the last night in that town's existence. Angley, Jack, and Smokey had gone out looking for their horses after leaving Doc's, but didn't have any luck. They decided to shack up in a small hut a couple miles outside of town. It was getting late and the person who had owned the house had died a couple months prior. Anyway, they wake up early before the sun is even up and decide the horses are long gone, so they should just head back to town. The sun is starting to come up when they reach town, and they can see before they even get there, a lot of people are already up and walking around town. Smokey thinks this is strange, saying, "I thought we got up early. Seems like the whole town is up already and at 'em." They get to the town and the sun is up, but it was just dark enough they didn't notice what was going on. Jack sees a guy he recognizes and called out, "Hey, Mac!" Mac turns, stops, and turns around, and the three guys all stop dead in their tracks. Half of Mac's face is gone, and that left is half muscle tissue and half of it straight down to the bone. The rest of his body isn't much better. He starts shambling towards the guy. Not a full-scale sprint, but not exactly slow either. "Holy shit, it's Brad!" Smokey calls out. Nobody else has time to call out. Smokey and Angley retreat while Jack stands his ground and shoots Mac. "His head!" Angley yells. Mac goes down with a boom. Everyone else in the street turns their attention to the guys and starts shambling towards them. Some are missing all assortments of limbs, from fingers to hands to arms. Most are missing large chunks of flesh. Apparently, one in particular had no flesh left at all on their head, and it was just a skeleton head on a decayed body. "The whole fucking town!" Smokey yells. They all shoot off a couple rounds before realizing the town is gone. Now they don't know anything about what happened during the autopsy. But remember the nurse? Yeah, she went off somewhere and died during the night. The bad news was she was living in the town inn for the time being since a lantern had tipped over and started a small fire where she lived. Anyway, nobody knew who she bit first, but you know how it goes. She ate someone, then they came back and ate someone else. Whole town was probably gone within an hour. "Run!" Angley yells. They scatter as the horde approaches. Smokey and Angley duck into the saloon while Jack disappears somewhere else. "What do we do?" Angley shrieks. "I don't know!" "Don't make any noise. Shut the hell up!" Smokey whispers loudly. It was too late. A couple zombies were already heading towards the saloon. "Upstairs!" Smokey yells. They hear a couple of gunshots outside, probably from Jack. They start upstairs and almost get there when the door to the room at the top of the stairs flies open and a zombie snarls and tackles Angley, who was going first. Angley and the zombie fall back, while Smokey reacts and backs up against the banister. They tumble down the bottom of the stairs. It's a grisly sight. The zombie starts eating Angley right away. He hits it a couple times and tries to get a shot off, but by the time a bunch more zombies have burst through the saloon swinging double door, and they start it too. Smokey gets upstairs and realizes he's cornered, so he steps over the railing and jumps down to the bar. He quickly jumps down behind it. What has been described as Angley getting eaten sounds pretty awful. Smokey sees a zombie a couple feet away with an arm, and another one has his leg nearby. The screams before being cut off in a gurgling grunt sound like something you simply can't unhear. So Smokey is hiding behind the bar wondering what the hell he is going to do. It sounds like the zombies have picked Angley clean, though they seem to be just shambling around. It's likely they forgot he was there. Smokey morbidly thinks to himself, Angley isn't going to look good when he rises back up. Smokey hid for what seemed like an eternity when he heard loud footsteps coming from the doorway. It was definitely hooves. He pops up and sees the sheriff riding his whole damn horse in the saloon. A bunch of zombies behind him. He's got a shotgun on him, and he blasts the two zombies nearest to him. They were close enough together that he got both of them, their heads basically exploding. He gets a second shot he blasts off and throws the whole gun at the nearest zombie. It was a double barrel, so he only had 2 shots. Anyway, this catches everyone else's attention, but he already had his pistol out. He gets maybe 3 more before the horde behind him catches up. His horse freaks out and bucks him off, so the sheriff crawls on the floor under some tables away from the zombies. It's kind of sad. He's able to escape because they get his horse. Out back! Sheriff yells at Smokey. They scurry out the back. What happened? Smokey yells. I don't know. I came into town to see the doc and found everyone was like Billy. Doc's got his place locked up tight, curtains drawn and everything. We need to find Jack, Smokey says. He's on his own, Sheriff says. We need help and we need it now. Huh? Smokey says. Sheriff quickly explains the help he wants to get is from the friendly Indians nearby, a couple miles southwest. Which tribe it was has changed over the years and it doesn't really matter. Smokey agrees they need the help, so they sneak down to the south end of town. Sheriff leads them to the doc's place, where he has Angley's horse tied up with the horse rail. There's a bag laying on the ground with a rope tied around it connected to the saddle. The bag clearly has a body in it. I found Angley's horse screwing around on my property this morning. I brought it in and tied Jones up to him after I had to kill him. I want to show these Indians exactly what we're up against, Jeff explains. They mount up and ride away as a bunch of zombies are headed towards them. Once they're in the clear, Smokey asks, You really think they'll help us? I've actually talked to them quite a few times, Sheriff says. They're a spiritual people. They have rich folklore. The way they talk about their ancestry. I bet they had a story of some kind dealing with the dead. If anything, I'm sure they have some words they can spare to help us kill these damn things. Smokey doesn't argue. They ride out a couple miles until they come across a scouting party. The village is a short ways past them. It seems like one of the Indians recognized the sheriff. He waves at him, and the Indian motions with his hand for his buddies and starts riding out to meet them. The sheriff talks to his friend, who has come to know as Buffalo Horse, about what is going on. He doesn't show Buffalo Horse what's in the bag, but he agrees to take them to the chief. Now, we call him Buffalo Horse because his name was something Indian sounding, like rides with buffalo or runs with bison or something. But apparently, Smokey called him Buffalo Horse on accident at some point because he forgot his name. Plus, Buffalo Horse is a lot easier to write than rides with buffalo, so there you go. Anyway, they get to the chief's teepee and Sheriff and Smokey wait outside a minute and untie Jones from the horse. Buffalo Horse comes out and says the chief will see them. They go inside, dragging Jones behind them, and see the chief and what must be his council all sitting on the ground. The chief says something in their native language. Why have you come and what do you bring with you? The person sitting next to the chief translate. We got ourselves a little pickle, Sheriff begins. The guy translate. The dead have come back to life. We need your help stopping it. The translator looks surprised, but, almost reluctantly, translates. The chief appears to ponder this statement while giving Sheriff a steely gaze. Look here, Sheriff says, unveiling Jones. Jones raises his head and snarls. He wasn't actually dead. The council and everyone else in the teepee jump to their feet and let out murmurs of shock and surprise. One member of the council yells loudly something in their language. then rushes over and buries his tomahawk into Jones's head. "I thought you said he was dead," Smokey whispered to Sheriff. "I lied," Sheriff whispers back. "We got a town full of these," Sheriff says. The council all deliberate. It seems like they might be telling the chief to tell Sheriff and Smokey to go fuck themselves. The chief speaks and the translator translate. "You will take Buffalo Horse and Fish River with you. They will help you kill them, and make sure none are left." Of course, his name isn't Fish River. He was the top fisherman in the tribe, so his name was related to that. I want to say it was swims with fish or runs with the river, but either way, I don't know for sure, and once again, Fish River is a lot easier to ride out. Hope nobody's offended by these nicknames. So Buffalo Horse and Fish River leave to gather their weapons. The chief says something to Sheriff and Smokey in English as they are leaving the tent. "Beware the bite of the dead man." "Thank you," Sheriff says. Not just for this tidbit of information, but for their help as a whole. "Beware the bite was the first damn thing we learned," Smokey says once they're outside. "Yeah, I told you they have some kind of knowledge about this. You see that one guy went straight for his head?" Buffalo Horse and Fish River right over. "All right, man," Sheriff says. "Looks like we've got a town to clean up." The Indians led Smokey a spare horse and the four of them ride back towards town. They get about a mile from town when they notice some stragglers. There's a couple of townsfolk who have scrambled out of town and are just lost wandering the open land. Buffalo Horse and Fish River take the opportunity to show what they can do. Buffalo Horse uses his bow and pulls off a miraculous headshot from about 50 yards out. Fish River rides up to his guy and smokes him in the head with some kind of club, the force of which knocks the whole rotting head off the shoulders. Anyway, they make a startling discovery at this point. A little past these two stragglers, they find a cow just standing in the middle of nowhere, its entire side missing flesh, with its rib cage and half of its guts on the ground next to it. After putting it down, they realize they're going to have to sweep the entire countryside all around town, thus not the zombies wandering off, but any animals they happen to eat along the way. They decide to split up and do a wide circle around town to clean up anything they find, before moving into town proper, a lot of people's houses as they decide to clear first. Most of them were single story and only a room or two. Smokey and Fish River, and Sheriff, and Buffalo Horse. They start at the south and ride their way to the north side of the town. They find a couple of stragglers they put down, and Sheriff ends up finding his horse as well, half limping after some kind of desert rodent to eat it. It was probably nice for Sheriff to be able to put him down for good, in a morbid kind of way. Alright guys, it looks like we're going to need a part 3.